This morning is entitled The Gift of Love. It is the third in a series that I didn't know I was going to do. I got up to preach about hope, and then the second week I was like, we really need to hear about faith too. And so I know it's Thanksgiving week, and normally I make the joke about how I don't follow hockey and have a football thing up here, but I'm not doing that this year. I think it's the first time in like 7 Thanksgivings that I hope you can bear with that. But I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Look, don't kill yourself with food, okay? But try and have a great time together. This morning, we're going to be discussing the third gift that God gives us with a sense of permanence, one we should anticipate abiding and being with us forever. I want to begin, though, with the idea that you have 31 shopping days left. Are you aware of that? It's just right around the corner. I do that because I think that people do better listening to a sermon if they have a source of stress right at the front end. So, it's on its way, it's coming, and it's going to be great, isn't it? It always is. This is my favorite time of the year. It really is. I love settling my heart into the wonder of the invasion of this broken world by the beautiful God, the one who was all-powerful and became weak and small for us. I love Advent. I love Christmas. You have 31 days to buy presents because that's what Christmas is all about, isn't it? It's all about the gifts, In a way, though, that it is kind of a big deal because there is something magical, isn't there? And those of us who are grown-ups, to see the beauty and the magic when the moment happens, and they open it up and it isn't socks after all, right? And well, it may end up being socks for my family. Okay, but the moment where they are like so excited. Oh, it's a thing I didn't even know I wanted, but I really wanted it, and now I've got it. I'm really happy and excited for 15 minutes until it's off over there, and they're in the box. In fact, have you ever noticed how, maybe the day after Christmas, the gifts are played with, and then they're off over there somewhere. A gift, there's a big difference between having a gift and using a gift, isn't there? Those are radically different things. The PlayStation is fun for a while until the particular game you've got wears out and you're tired. Well, it doesn't wear out, but you've beaten it 7 times, and what are you going to do now? Or, you really weren't all that interested in knitting or whatever. And the gift that you got, what did you get for Christmas 2017? Do you remember? Yeah, good for you. That's good. But I think it's very common for a gift because it's about that moment. But there are some gifts where this isn't trivial. Gifts that are given that you have, but do you use it? God's gifts are never meant to collect dust. The nature of the gifts that God gives, and you can have the gift and not use it at all. The last couple of weeks we have been talking about this cluster of gifts that God gives. Faith, hope, and love. These 3 abide. The greatest is the one we discussed today. 2 weeks ago we discussed hope, and last week we chewed on faith. But this week I want us to think about this greatest of all gifts that God gives, the thing that truly should be found in every congregation and in every individual Christian, that the disciple is called, that the Christian is called into a life of exercising something that comes into him or to her from the outside. It comes as a gift. In Romans 5, Paul will talk about the love of God has been poured into our hearts. This is not something we gen up or generate. It's something that we receive. But it is then something we're not just supposed to play with the box. It's something we're expected to use. Jesus once encountered the Pharisees. He was having this tussling thing with the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and he had silenced them, and the Pharisees saw that they get together, and the text actually says, and one of them, but it's one of the Pharisees, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him, "Teacher, which is the greatest commandment of the law?" Okay, so what is it that's essential to be done to fulfill the will of God? What is it that God really wants? There are 613 candidates. Okay, 613 things that you can do or abstain from doing that are expected. Which one is the most important? What's the thing that really defines a faithful person? What is it that will really inspire hope? What is it that really makes for a person of God? And Jesus gives this answer, and he said to him, you shall love. Which, that's weird. You shall love? Isn't that kind of like you shall eat chocolate? I mean, have you ever experienced love? Yes, you have. How do I know? Because you're here. You know that if you want to cause a human being to wither up and die, don't love it. And in the Soviet Union and in Nazi Germany, those kinds of psychological social experiments were done, and infants will die if they are not loved. You know, and when Jesus says, man does not live on bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God, that is absolutely true. And the love of God, it's essential. And the love of God is expressed through human beings. So we are required to love one another in order to live. Not only that, but meaning and purpose. Without love, life just falls apart. It becomes empty. A person can survive or endure anything if love is coming into them. You know, they can make it through being in a war-torn country. They can make it through disaster. They can make it through pain. They can make it through like the absence of necessary goods like food. If love is present. If a person isn't loved. That's why it's like, I command you to love. I mean, you shouldn't have to do that, should you? And yet when I look into the Scriptures, I find that Jesus is absolutely right. These are the commandments that I find. You shall love the Lord with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. It's right there. At least that's how we sing it. That's not actually the text. It's you shall love your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Strength got added to even out the song, I suppose. But, there it is. A commandment to love. And Jesus will also point out this one, you shall not take vengeance or a grudge against the sons of your own people, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And Jesus will tell us those are the two great commandments. And in fact, everything that is the will of God hangs upon these two things. That if I want to keep the law of God, then if I act with love toward God, I won't profane Sabbath, and I won't take the name of God in vain. Why? Because I love Him, and I cherish Him, and I don't do awful things to Him. And I won't murder, because people rarely murder those they love. You say rarely, because if you live in a family, it can get there, but for the most part, you don't steal. You don't harm people you love. In fact, Paul will say again in Romans that love does no harm to its neighbor. Therefore, love is a fulfilling of the law. All of God's commandments are commandments to love. How very strange when it's something we want to do anyway. Oh, goodness. Well, what kind of sense does it make to tell me you must love? I want to love. I want to love and be loved. Everybody needs somebody to love. The Blues Brothers told me that. We all know that. So we want to love. You don't have to tell me to love. It's like telling me to eat cheesecake. I clearly have a problem. That's weird, isn't it? Or do we? Do we really want to love, though? Really? Do we want to love like, I guess we want to love like that, but do we want to love like that? You don't have to tell people to love when they feel all schmoopy or when it's their kid. Natural love drives us then. But what would drive a man to do that? And make no mistake, it was done to him, but only because he chose it. He didn't have to do that. He wasn't kidding when he said he could call on angels. He absolutely had no obligation to be there. And do you think it's nails holding him up there? It's love holding him in place. And he could come down at any moment. They made fun of him. Yeah, if you're God, what would happen if he did? Oh man, he's coming down, that would be the end of everything. Because it was love to preserve the universe and to redeem it from its brokenness and sin that drove him to do that. And remember, as a disciple of Jesus, you are called to take up your cross. Follow him into the way of love. We are intended to be self-giving creatures. For the most part, we're not. Have you ever read this book? I use this book routinely, all the time. It's a really, really, really good book for marriage enrichment. I mean, excellent. Because it describes, the subtitle there, it's his needs, her needs, just in case in the back you can't read 208 font type. But underneath it, it says, building an affair-proof marriage. This is exactly what that book is designed to do. Because the reason that we find our way into affairs, and men and women find their way there for slightly different reasons, but it really is, in both cases, about the death of romantic love. And the way that we find our way there is that our needs aren't being met, either through neglect or actually through the intentional badness of our spouse. Our needs aren't being met, and it erodes our love for them. As long as a person is doing something good for me, by the way, here are the needs that he identifies in that book. Willard Harley talks about they're alphabetized. Don't know why they did that. They're prioritized in the book. The number one need for women is affection, the second one there. And the number one need for men is sexual fulfillment. I'm sure that comes as no shock to anyone in the room, at least not any married person. But all of these are important things. And people tend to, this is what I just described is generally speaking on a bell curve of the population. Those are the two most important needs. But you take any one person, and a man might say, sex is great, but it's not the most important thing to me. I really need to be affirmed. I grew up in a world where no one ever affirmed me. Everyone has always told me I'm stupid all of my life, except you. And you have always been good to me, and this is the most important thing to me. You help me to love myself. So tell me again who I am, because I don't believe it. And that can be very real, right? And as long as we meet one another's needs, as long as my needs are being met, it's very easy for me to want to meet yours, because having my needs met fills me up with good feelings about you, and I want to be good to you. But let my needs not be met. I meant to put in another slide where I reverse the arrows. I want you to make some effort. Imagine that. I think you can handle it. Imagine that the arrows point away from one another. You see, that's why affairs so often happen, is that either through neglect or getting my feelings hurt, you aren't getting anything from me. I pull into myself, and now none of your needs are met. And maybe I don't have the affair, but maybe because I'm not doing anything for you, maybe you do. And folks, I can tell you, the reason I use this book, humanity in its current state needs help to love. It's really useful to get the training of affirming one another. Don't love her the way you need to be loved. Love her the way she needs to be. Don't love him the way he needs to be loved. The way you need to be loved. Love him the way he needs to be. I'll get there. And it just makes everybody happy and everything keeps going. But why is it's possible to shut the spigot off in the first place? Let me ask you something. How many of God's needs do you think you meet by your existence? The thing falls apart after the word God's, then it makes no sense anymore, does it? God exists without needs. You realize God does not need you? Everything that God needs, if you can speak of it that way, for a pleasant existence, God already had before he created the universe. Father, Son, and Spirit are a completely satisfied existence. They all love each other, and they don't need you. They choose you. They want you. And in spite of the fact that not only do you not give him anything that he needs, but as sinners, all of us give him something to suffer, he continues to love us. You see how radically different that is from this? Human love has been corrupted by the fall. When we stepped away from our nature as God's image bearers and ran into the shadows, we did so because we had become changed. And selfless love that we were created to have as our nature. We were designed to not need this. We were designed to just be loving creatures that gave everything of ourselves away. But it had become selfish. That is human nature now. And I chose this bloody, ugly slide to describe it because I want it to stick with you. It's our selfishness that drives us to be so bad at love that we must be commanded to do it. It is our need for, I want to be affirmed, I need my needs, meet my needs, and then that is broken. That is not of God. Now, let's face it, in the fallen world and in our nature, the reason I use his needs, her needs, is because it's the reality. And I'm going to do everything I can. I think marriage is purpose. I think eventually we get to the point where that other person cannot meet my needs and I'm still going to love them. Because marriage is designed to be a sacrament, a place where we encounter holiness. It helps us to grow and become more like God. It challenges us and forces us to love a sinner like God does when he works with you. And so, yeah, you can get there, but most of us need the help and the reminder that, by the way, if you take care of your spouse, you'll be a much happier person. But it's because we're so broken. We're such a mess inside that even love is corrupted by selfishness. Even the most beautiful thing that we're meant to have is so, I want mine. And if I get mine, maybe I'll share. Maybe. And we end up being not just a whole lot better than 3-year-olds. And we look at our hearts. Such a mess. The nature of God's love is radically different from that. Radically different. As I said, he doesn't need his needs met. He doesn't have any needs. And he does everything he does in self-emptying. The coming of Christ is described in Philippians 2 as a self-emptying where he empties himself. That is not a weird thing that Jesus did when he became man and came among us. It is entirely consistent with his nature all the way through. Father, Son, and Spirit have constantly practiced self-emptying for the sake of the others. Father empties himself into the Son because he delights in him and he gives to him. And Son delights in the Father and receives and gives back. And they both give and receive from Spirit. And it's been that dance that's always existed. And this is the nature of love. It is a self-stepping down, a self-emptying, a selflessness because you have a selfless God. And that's the nature of love. I can't do that. Not on your own. It is poured into you. He pours that kind of love into your hearts. This is why it's gift. And we are led to this. This shatters any illusions that my love is, what it ought to be. When I see that and I realize how I have limits on what I'm willing to do, but he clearly doesn't. There are no limits to his love. And no one earns his love. No one meets his needs so that he'll do that. While we were yet his enemies, he did that. So that he could make friends with us. He didn't love us because we were willing to make friends. He loved us so that we could become friends. He overwhelms and is good to everyone all the time. When Paul goes to describe love, this is the list that he gives in 1 Corinthians 13. I can unpack all of those, but I don't think we have the time for it this morning, so I'm not going to. But I just want you to look at the list as a whole. Many of you know it. Many of you know it by heart. Think about what is it that all of these have in common. Well, one thing you could say that they all have in common is that they are not selfish, right? I mean, I blew my reveal. I meant to say one thing that they all have in common is that they're like Jesus, right? Jesus in his nature is being described here. You want to know what he's like? He's like love. But the other thing that I've already said is that by nature, these are not selfish attitudes. Try to be selfish and patient at the same time. Good luck with that. Try not to be irritable while you're being selfish. I mean, irritability and selfishness are best friends. Actually, it's mother-child. Selfishness gives birth to irritability all the time. It gives birth to resentment all the time. A selfish person will not bear anything for you. It won't believe in you. It believes in itself. You see how that list of love's attributes is about a self-emptying person. And by the way, we are meant to be like this toward God all the time. I may be unique in this, but very often I listen to my prayers, and when I wake up to it, I go, oh my goodness, God, I'm sorry, because I'm treating you as though you exist for me and not the other way around. God, solve my problem. God, where are you? Don't you realize this trouble is still here in my life? God, you're supposed to fix this. God, God, come on, God. Now, I'm not saying never cry out to God. In fact, because of the love He has for you, He wants you to do that. But my whole life is meant to be poured out for Him. If I will do that, I will find my life. I will find who I am in the self-emptying for God. I will discover the meaning and purpose of my life as I give my life away to other people in God's name. I'm meant to be this way for God, and I'm meant to be like this with everybody. All other humans. The ones who treat me well, the ones who treat me badly. The ones who are in my family and the ones who aren't. All other people. All of them. All of them. Now, the truth is, for some, that's pretty easy. You think you'd have a hard time loving that little girl? No, come on. I mean, maybe you're a weirdo, but I think that's pretty cute, man. I'm drawn to that. You know, some people are just really, really easy to love. And then there are others who present us with challenge. The depth of the challenges that they have faced has caused them to become so broken that they are unlovely. And loving some people it can require so much of you. It can be so hard to love them, to continue to care about them, to remind yourself of the image of God found in them, to open up your heart and move towards them when everything in you wants to hate them, and to have a loving heart that is self-giving. Their wickedness makes it impossible. No, it doesn't, because your wickedness didn't make it impossible. He loved you in spite of all of it, and you were called to love exactly the same way. No matter who they are, no matter what they've done, no matter what mess is in their hearts and in their lives, no matter how they hurt you, no matter how gross they are, no matter how disgusting and vile their sin, you are called to be good and loving to everyone, 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 everyone. I have this picture to represent your enemy. The person without a face, put their face there. The person who is bad to you. The person who is challenging to love, that's them. Can you do it? Can you stir selflessness for them? Can you do it? Really, for all of the masses of humanity? This is not human. To love all of them? It's not human. Or I should say, this is not fallen human. The truth is, it is very human. It is entirely human because it's what you were created to be. You were created to bear the image of God, and this is your God. Every face, every offensive face, and I looked for offensive ones that I could find. Every offensive face is desired and loved and beloved of God. He loves them all. He wants them all for Himself. Every last one of them. Because their sins are not a challenge to God's love. And He's not going to force anyone to come to Him. But He wants them. Do we? This is God. How do I know? Because this is Christ. Because of the cross. Why did He do it? For His friends? For His buddies? What, He died for 11 men? Come on. You know better. Christ died for all. For everyone. This is the nature of love. And this, folks, is Christian. It may not be like the rest of the world, but it is Christian. This is what we are expected to do. And you say, I can't do it. Not on your own. No. As a fallen creature, you're not made of this stuff. It is a gift. You are able to do it by the power of God's work in you. And when you encounter a challenge to selflessness, call upon your gift. Use your gift. Don't use the box, use the gift. Pick it up. Prayer. Draw near to God. Call Him to help you use it again. Because folks, and this is my last slide. Like all gifts, it is a delight to use. This is a gift that we, in our fallen nature, we look at it and we go, well, that's absurd. I don't want to do that. They're mean. They're bad to me. I don't want to. And if I did that, I would lose all my rights. And if I did that, I would be humiliated. And if I did that, I'd be unpatriotic. I would violate all my values. I don't want to do that. I won't do that. The Spirit within you will. And when you do, when you are selfless in the name of God, everything you're afraid of may happen. You might lose everything. You could even lose your life. The martyrs did. For the sake of love, they died. But when you do, you find yourself truly what you were always meant to be. And the moment you do it, you know it. The pale, empty shadow that is selfish love is such a delight because it is related to this thing. It is entangled with this thing, this true love. And it's such a delight, and it gives such meaning and such hope and such wonder to life that when we practice it, when we are truly selfless, when we forgive our enemy, when we turn the other cheek, we find ourselves truly alive. And we say, this is what I was for. When we forgive the unforgivable and we draw near to the enemy with compassion and kindness, they might still be a jerk. So what? They murdered Jesus, didn't they? And He is alive. Can anyone deny it? This is your life. And the use of this gift. How will I do it? Only by faith. It is the heart inflamed with hope that does this. It says, even if they're bad, I will be hopeful in my God. And no matter what they do, I will love. I will use the gift that God has given to me. And I will be alive in Christ Jesus my Lord, even if they kill me. This is the gift of God in Christ Jesus. And it's yours. If you're a Christian, then it's yours. And it's hard to use. Don't get me wrong, it is so hard to use. But you can by His power. And if you're in a situation where you need to use it, it may be that you need prayer to get there. It may need that you also need our prayer to get there. And if that's you, we want to pray for you. The elders are going to come to the corners of the church right now, and they'll pray with you one-on-one if you don't want to tell the church about it. Or if you want to talk to all of us, you can come here. It may be that there's something going on in your life right now that is, it's a huge burden, but I haven't really touched on it today. And that's you, that's fine. We still want to pray for you. Let us do it. And if you're not following Jesus Christ our Lord, today is the day to start. He is the very best person, and He can help you find yourself. He's wonderful. Come to Him. If you're subject this morning to the invitation of God, there's room right here. Why don't you come?